Welcome to Goal Outlet, your guide to entrepreneurship and digital marketing with your host, Mike McDermott. Goal Outlet dishes up killer growth hacking strategies from today's small business movers and shakers. Find out more at goaloutlet.com. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everyone. It is July 12th, 2018, and this is Goal Outlet with your host, Mike McDermott. How's everything going, guys? This is, we are in midsummer now. We can officially say that, and it is hot as heck out there. One of the things I'd like to talk about today, as you can tell from the title of this podcast and in the show notes, is disruption in the market or marketing disruption. So, what is exactly marketing disruption? It's something that I think you either are extremely familiar with and you know that it exists, or you are probably a consumer of disruption and it's like the biggest, problem in your life. It's the biggest, upsetting, I just want to go and put my head under a pillow and just go to sleep or something, because disruption is from a definition perspective. Disruption means not doing something the ordinary or normal way, in so much that you have become accustomed to doing it or accustomed to observing it, right? So I'm going to throw out a couple of examples this morning and talk a little bit about each one. And then, kind of circle back and, kind of break down how disruption and marketing disruption has a place in marketing your business, as well as, something that you can go and kind of have a takeaway from. So let's see. I'm just pulling up some headlines here, see what's going on. One of the things that I think everyone has probably gotten used to and has identified with is that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is in the news every day. This is something that is absolutely different than what Americans have been used to seeing out of their president. Is that the president, for the most part, during the media generation, if you were in the news, that means something bad was happening. A war was happening. You were getting impeached, right? Those kinds of things. That's the reason why presidents get in the news, right? The president does not necessarily, historically, want to be the front page headline every day of the week, every month of the year. But our new president is absolutely very familiar with that, and he is king of disruption. Not only disruption, he's not only a mechanic or a practitioner of disruption in his own administration, but then his administration is also a disrupting force. Now, I think you've probably seen in the news headlines, all of the different, firings that are going on there at the White House, and you ask yourself, why in the world is that? When you can have, most presidents have cabinet members stick around for at least 4 years, if not 8, if not 12, right? Sometimes even a Democrat president will pick up a cabinet member from a Republican president because they did a damn good job. So that's what we're used to seeing, and this is a disruptive administration, where it's really what's taking place within that administration is a mini Game of Thrones. So if the president is very willing to take information that hasn't been necessarily fact-checked. And so if you slide a piece of paper that has some information on his desk, he's going to read it and he's going to take that as, oh, hey, maybe I should follow up on that. Versus, the president taking the piece of paper and putting it in front of somebody else and saying, hey, can you go fact check that for me? Sounds interesting. I don't want to take any action on it until I actually make sure it's legit. So, without that set of processes there at the White House, everything becomes disruptive. And so what happens is that a presidential administration that normally is not a disruptive, force in media and in the news becomes very disruptive because things pop out, things occur, statements are made, statements are attributed. So there's a lot of disruption going on there. Oh, and then like I said, not only is President Trump a unwilling participant in some of this disruption, he also causes some of this disruption. Obviously, when you go and fire lots of people, then you have to go in and hire lots of people, and then you have to go in and say that they're doing a great job. And like after Katrina and Bush said, Brownie's doing a great job. It's like, no, he didn't do a great job. Right. So, fact check, make sure that all of the people that you have are doing a great job before you say that they're doing a great job. Go find out if, the person that you just says is an outstanding human being, didn't just, kill 300 members of his immediate family because they said something bad about him. You want to definitely have control of some of that disruption, and then be the architect of that disruption. One of the other disruptions we've seen, as I'm looking through my news feed here, is IHOP is continually in the news now, right? Why is IHOP, the International House of Pancakes, showing up in my news feed again, right? Just immediately below my, articles about what's happening in the Trump White House. As some of you may have known, IHOP, the International House of Pancakes, temporarily changed their name to International House of Burgers, and they became IHOB. Now, think of that for a second. You changed the name of your brand, the absolute name of your brand, and you say, why in the world would they do something like that? And immediately IHOP got press out of that. Immediately. And you know why? It wasn't just because they changed their friggin' brand name. It's also because the grilling that they received from Burger King and Wendys and Denny's and stuff online on Twitter and Facebook, just burning IHOP for making that name change, right? And so, I think, what was it? Let's see what else do I have in here in this feed here. Like Burger King, they changed their name on temporarily. I think they've switched it back since then. Temporarily, Burger King changed their name to Pancake King on Facebook and Twitter because they were just trying to make fun of and poke fun at a competitor online. And Denny's did the same thing. Whataburger, Wendy's. Wendy's was, oh man, they're so good on their Twitter feed. They're just totally burning it. It's like, hey, if I wouldn't trust the burgers from a place that think that they don't do a great job making pancakes anymore. So imagine trying to do that. Say you're the CMO at IHOP, and one of your marketing managers comes up to you and says, hey, I hear, one of our goals, our internal goals, is to go in and advertise that we sell food at lunchtime and at dinner, and it doesn't have to be a pancake. It can be a burger. We're going to sell burgers, and we're going to advertise that we sell burgers. And instead of just going on and, printing a bunch of stuff and putting on TV commercials and, with sizzling burgers and IHOP's name attached to it, that person comes up and says, we're going to change the brand name temporarily to IHOB, but it's going to be a totally fake thing. We're not actually going to do it. We're just going to say that we're going to do it. Imagine that CMO responding to that marketing manager. If he didn't just totally laugh him off push him into a corner or fire the guy for being a dummy. That CMO thought about it for a second. He said, what's that going to do? Because the CMO's then got to go up to everybody else, in the executive chain and let them know that we're unseriously considering changing the brand, right, that has carried this company for decades. Good on that CMO, right? Disruption is important, right? So the marketing team at IHOP, or the agency that supports IHOP, thought about this seriously and said, hey, yeah, we're going to catch all kinds of flack. The competition is going to come out and they're just going to totally use this, right, to their advantage, to their suspected advantage, right? The actual disruption of changing the name put IHOP back on the map. Put them, they had no followers on Twitter. Now they do. They had no people following on Facebook, and now you got millions of people now responding and taking action on this IHOP news. And, you've got, people from, sports personalities and stuff coming in and out of the woodwork here saying stuff about the IHOP brand. All free marketing just by coming up with the idea to change the company name to IHOP. So what is disruption? How can you use it in your business? Disruption is something that can make a consumer uncomfortable. Marketing disruption also can make your competition uncomfortable. One of the things that IHOP did, right, the marketing team at IHOP, or the agency that supports IHOP, they did brilliantly was tick off the competition. Because as soon as, Wendys and Burger King saw that happen, they're like, oh my goodness, that was such a brilliant idea. Well, we're going to have to burn them and advertise our own burgers as being better. Because that's all you can do. All of a sudden you put your competition on their heels, right? And, then they have to come up and think of how are they going to advertise their stuff, right? One of the ads that I'm looking here in my stream on Twitter is Chili's Grill and Bar, right, at Chili's. So they're like, hey, so, you think you can make burgers? Here's our burger, right? So they threw a picture of their boss burger on Twitter as the, air quote, response to the IHOP market disruption. They didn't know what else to do. They're like, oh, hey, let's just take a picture of our hamburger and put it up there. And maybe people will forget about the buzz that IHOP is creating about their brand. Right? So that's what happened there. And IHOP was able to take this branding change, and because then the news, right, the media got a hold of this, and then they were able to start storytelling. Right? So then IHOP executives then had to respond to the media buzz that was coming around and said, hey, so tell us about IHOP's history. Who comes up to you if you've got a business that you've been running for 20 or 30 years? When was the last time somebody came up and said, what's the history of your company? Where did you come from? Right? Nobody does that. Nobody does that because there's no disruption. They just, if you are, if you're Abbott Laboratories and you make pharmaceutical stuff, you just make pharmaceutical stuff. Nobody's coming up and going, hey, what's the storied history of your company, right? Unless there's disruption. No one's asking about your history. But they started asking about their history, and they're like, well, hey, thank you, news person. Let me tell you about our history. Ba-boom, right? It just happened. Then you get the story tell, right? And that is the most powerful tool in reaching a consumer's ears because stories capture attention, and stories often can then offer up components that really make people emotionally attached or involved with a brand. And that's really what you want to do, right? You want to create some fear and uncertainty. So what's a good story for IHOP, right? Is IHOP's story saying, okay, so once upon a time, a really rich guy took some of his money, not all of his money, but some of his money, invested it in a series of restaurants that became a chain called IHOP. And he made a lot of pancakes and he made millions of dollars, right? Now, I mean, is that the story you tell? No, consumers aren't going to go in and go, oh, man, that's amazing, right? No, you tell it like, like this is a Huckleberry Finn story, right? This is a Mark Twain story, right? This is a Norman Rockwell moment for you and your brand. You're taking your brand and you're saying, with only $37 in his pocket, this guy whipped up some pancake batter, threw it on a griddle, and sold it for 5 cents a piece, right? Until like everybody said that Charlie made the best pancakes. I don't know the IHOP story, obviously. But that's what you want to tell. Right? You want to have a redemption story. You want to have a from rags to riches story. You want to have a story from the person was the person had to fight through challenge after challenge after challenge to get to where they were. And then you have power with your brand. People that have emotional attachments to things all of a sudden become huge supporters of said things, right? You don't feel like you want to support the people that support the baby seals until you see the TV commercial of hunters out there beating the baby seals over the head with a mallet, right? You don't become because how many times do you see baby seals on a daily basis? You don't. You see them on TV, in these commercials. And then all of a sudden you send, $19.95 a month for the rest of your life to the baby seal fund. That emotional attachment happened with that commercial. Very emotional, disruptive. Again, you created fear and uncertainty in that person that all of a sudden, one of these days, there won't be seals. So, that's how you do it. Okay. We are starting to run out of time here because we keep this podcast very short and simple and direct. So let's get to the meat and potatoes of this thing. So, Mr. Business Owner, how in the world do you create disruption with your business? How do you become more disruptive? Say that you already feel like you're disruptive. Say you do kinds of crazy things. How can you do that? One thing, number one, hire differently. Okay? What you find there is, and I on purpose threw in there IHOP's internal marketing team or their agency. A lot of times companies have large, substantial, good internal marketing agencies, but they don't have any good ideas. They're dead on good ideas. The marketing team at IHOP may be there specifically to do sales enablement, but not to be creative. Maybe you need to hire a creative team, right? Hire differently. Hire people that have different sets of skills than you believe that particular position requires. Hire people you like. Hire people that bring up different things and are willing to talk, right? And not just sit there and not just listen. Hire disruptive people, and then you can cause disruption. Of course, there's always the flip side of that person being too disruptive internally. So take risks, be a business owner, take more risks. Number 2, introduce your brand differently. Okay, so this is something that I do internally with my own brand, Bash Foo, right? And sometimes I introduce it as a digital marketing agency. Sometimes it's an inbound marketing agency, and people say, "What's inbound marketing?" I'm saying, "Glad you asked," right? And so, I brand test Bash Foo left and right. So I receive different feedback based on how I deliver my brand. So I do that one-on-one to see how well it works before I go spend $1,000 on Google AdWords on that specific description of my business or that specific service that I'm providing, right? Sometimes I come out and I say, hey, we're an email marketing company. Really? What kind of services does an email marketing company do? Well, I'm glad you asked. Right? If I say, hey, Bass Pro is an email marketing company. Oh, that's great. Hey, did you see the Reds game yesterday? They got clobbered by the Indians. Okay, so it obviously didn't work. I wasn't disruptive enough. It basically said, hey, this guy's going to talk about something boring for 15 minutes. Number 3, start a mini war with your competition. Ha! Right? This is what happens in Twitter with these restaurants, right? And so this is something that's become more and more commonplace between the restaurants, and so then the restaurants, the marketing teams have to come up with more interesting, more snarky, right? So you need to go in and hire not the person that has 100% snark, but 275% snark in every comment that they say. You have to hire that person and have them run your Twitter if you are a restaurant today. Because, it's literally a snark war, right? It's, the people that get, the brands that get followed, the brands that get listened to, the brands that catch buzz online are the ones that are snarky and funny and hilarious and just irreverent. Swing back to IHOP, swing back to President of the United States, right? All had all those qualities. The competition is going to have to react to your disruptiveness if you go in and start calling them names, making fun of their product, making fun of their service, right? They're going to have to do something, or maybe they don't. And then you just look like a jerk, right? Take care in doing these attacks. And sometimes you may even want to go in and I've done this before, right? Put the client in the same room with the competitor. Say, hey, guys, do we both want to make more money? Do we want to start a mini war that's public, that catches lots of buzz, and then client A makes money, and the competitor of client A also makes more money? You can do that. The consumer's not going to know. They're definitely not going to figure that you guys are working together on something like that. Think about it. All right. Number 4. Use organization tools to become disruptive. Okay, so being disruptive every day is a task, right? So basically, if you come up with a plan like IHOP did to become disruptive, they had to think through what all of the different steps were going to be. They had to go in and figure out, okay, so what happens if no one pays attention to us? What happens if everyone pays attention to us? What happens if everyone pays attention to us and wants to know the story about IHOP? So somebody had to go back and tighten up the story of IHOP, the history, the mission statement, that kind of stuff. Get organized. Use automation tools, right? So automation tools to go in and take that information and disseminate it and distribute it widely, right? So you can't count on your competition jumping on your case and the media making it into a big buzzworthy thing. Sometimes your disruption is great. If it doesn't get heard about, that's not great, right? So IHOP had to do something to make it great, right? So, and our POTUS, all he does is call up, Fox News and says something, and then it's out there, right? He doesn't even have to go and get in front of the podium anymore and say anything. He can just mention it to Brian Kilmeade or something like that, over steak dinner, and, then it's in the news the next day, right? He has vehicle after vehicle after vehicle now to go and insert disruption into the market, creating a situation that is positive for him and negative for everybody that he doesn't like, which is great. He's got I wouldn't say he's a master of it, but I say he definitely is a practitioner. IHOP is absolutely a practitioner, maybe a master at this. And you can be a practitioner of this, and you can become a master at this if you go in and use those 4 things, right? So hire differently, introduce your brand differently, doing some A and B testing, right, of it with your friends, your colleagues, things like that. Start a war with your competition, right? Make it small at first, Maybe introduce it to your competition before you even launch it. But definitely do it. And then use organization tools to become more disruptive and disseminate that disruption out there so that it picks up the buzz and speed that it needs to become viral. There's your Goal Outlet moment for the week. This is Mike McDermott. Thank you so very much for joining in, and have yourself a great day.